Welcome back to Jayhawk Jukebox. I'm Audrey.
And I'm Taylor.
And we're here for Song of the Week. So Taylor, tell us about your Song of the Week.
Yeah, so I chose It Will Come Back by Hozier. He's like one of my favorite artists of all time. This is a song off his first album. And I just really love him for like all year round, but especially like those fall vibes lately. And like I saw him in concert, and it's to this day like still one of my favorite concerts of all time.
I want to see him live so bad.
Yeah, it's just so good.
Specifically at Red Rocks though.
Yeah.
We were talking about that
And
earlier.
like this song specifically I love because my favorite songs of his are the ones that are super like guitar heavy. And that was also like the best part about his live performance too, is like him playing the guitar and like switching between like acoustic and electric, and then like the band he had with him. And so like songs like these just remind me of that, and like how similar to his live performances to like the recording, just how strong his voice is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love whenever artists like just go off on a little guitar solo for a bit and like all that. Oh, love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, my song, I chose Homesick by Madison Beer. I mostly chose this song because I'm literally seeing her next week at Truman, I believe. I think. I need to check. But yeah, I just really liked the whole album. It came out last year, I believe. And it is kind of like a really depressing album, I'll be honest. Like all the songs are just very much like talk about mental health and like, I don't know, little things like going through breakups and all that stuff. But Homesick specifically I liked because just like the lyrics in it, I was like, oh, like she like doesn't know like how to fit in, like not that I don't, sorry, everyone concerned, LOL. But no, I just love the lyrics in it, and the ending of the song, she has like a little snippet from Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love like the other production parts of it, like at the beginning. I feel like the production really like shows off her voice in a nice way.
Yeah, she has a lot of good like harmonies throughout the entire album, which I love. But yeah, and she also, that intro in the beginning of that song is also similar to like her intro to the whole album, which I really like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was Song of the Week. We'll be right back after the break.
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
Welcome back to Jayhawk Jukebox. I'm Audrey.
Oh, I'm Dana.
And I'm Hayden.
And today we are talking about the tragedy of Astrofest. Yeah, there were 9 people, I believe, and counting, that died, and 46 and counting cases against Travis Scott and his team and other people involved. You went to Astrofest like a couple years ago. How was that for you?
Well, for me, I definitely felt a little bit of kind of what everybody was describing when I was like reading people's posts and people who went. And it was a little bit less chaotic for me, but I definitely felt, so I was right at the front. So if you could imagine like a concert where there's like a 20th row and like the third row, right when Post Malone exited his set and Travis was about to play next, like everybody started pushing, and I was like near what would be like third row.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was so I lost all my friends, and I was like, I couldn't record, my arms were up the whole time. I was seeing that similarity, like once your arms are up, you can't put them down, and just those types of things, so yeah.
Did you feel like you were in danger at any point?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It was so, like after, I have a picture of myself after, like completely like covered in mud, and just bruises all over like my legs.
Where was that show?
No, that was,
Was it at the same place?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Astrofest 2018. Okay. But after that, I was like, I will never come to this festival. Because I saw him in concert. It was a little bit different, like not the same energy, but because it is his hometown, like Houston, it was that kind of like,
Kind of makes sense.
I've seen just like so many videos like of this year, obviously, but also just like past years, and like I've never in my life been like, I want to go to a Travis Scott concert. Like, I'll be honest. Like, while I do, like, I listen to his music, I just, like, I think it would,
It's a little chaos.
I would be terrified. I get terrified just in, like, normal crowds of, like, being shoulder to shoulder with people. Like, I just, like, it freaks me out.
Yeah, no.
Now, you have gone to a few Playboi Carti concerts, right?
Yes, I actually went, well, I went, like, I think it was, like, 2017 or something. He had a tour, and I think it was at, like, the Midland, I believe. And that was crazy because it was, like, kind of the same vibe. It's, like, everyone just pushed to the front. You're getting sloshed
that
around.
energy.
Yeah, I, like, almost twisted my ankle at that concert. It was awful. And then I saw him at Lolla this year. And I lost, like, my friends I was with. I just was like, they, like, went in. I was like, I'm good. I'm going to stay back here.
Wasn't he
like,
right before Miley Cyrus at Lolla this past year?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yes,
Wasn't there, like, some, the planning
Very
on that
switch
was a
up.
little,
Yeah,
very
they should have
different.
definitely.
Yes. Miley was good, though.
because there's a lot of videos online of, like, Cardi fans moshing whenever
Yeah.
everybody that was here to see Miley, like all these like teenage girls are like going up and trying to see.
like,
people
that's
are
just two different
battering each
energy,
other.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
No, like at the Travis concert, like definitely there was one moment I dropped my friend's phone and
it's
I look
gone.
up and the people are closing in on me.
No.
Yes, it was so bad.
That's awful.
And I can't imagine what people were feeling like this year.
I know,
Like, if it was
especially-
like even worse.
Yeah, especially with all like the videos you've
Yeah.
seen of people just like.
How big of a difference do you think it was that this is one of the first big events back from COVID too? You know, like people have been
True.
trying to get out for a
Yeah.
while. I mean, I know it was in Texas, a state that's been somewhat kind of lax on things, but still like having this big music event with such a hyped up and current artist, like the fact, what factor do you think played into that, if any?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like his fans overall. I just feel like they, like, I hate to say they know what they're getting into with it, but like I feel like they just like kind of weren't thinking about everyone else around them in the situation.
And I mean, it
like,
progressively has gotten worse over the past few years.
like I've never, like out of all the shows, I've never heard anything like good happen. And also like in this video currently, it's like people literally like, some people didn't even have tickets. Like they're just like really shoving their way through. And
he was like deleting tweets about like letting people in who don't have tickets and things like that. I saw.
Yeah. And
a
like
lot
there's,
of unfortunate things done by Travis Scott in the wake of this too. Like the video he put on where he was like, oh, you know, I just can't believe
that
this.
was.
Like,
I love all the
I
memes
definitely-
with it though that are like him reading like like a piece of paper and just like covering his face. I'm
I
like,
definitely
oh my God.
think he had a part to play in like, because if you want to do
Definitely.
big things, like if you want to accomplish big things as an artist, you also have to be responsible when those big things
like
go
Linkin
wrong.
Park does that very well. Like they've been one of the bands that's kind of come up as well in this situation because people are comparing Scott to them, where they've seen these type of things happen at their concerts and they stop the music. They say, y'all need to get that blank back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they try to make sure everybody's safe, and then meanwhile Travis Scott there was somebody getting carted away and at his concert, and he was over, yeah,
I know.
You know,
He
it's
was just like humming along while this
It's
like
terrible.
lifeless body is being carried, and also like the videos of like the ambulance and stuff. It's like, how did he not like see the ambulance trunk in the middle of the mosh pit
And it came
like
out,
the middle of the crowd?
He went to Dave & Buster's after.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he
Yes,
went to
yes.
Dave & Buster's for like a big party.
Hosted an
after.
I heard about the
after
Drake
party.
thing,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, it's crazy
not a
that
good
Drake,
look
I
for
mean,
him.
not crazy, it makes sense that Drake was sued too, like
Yeah.
in this whole scenario. But yeah, I just think like overall, like the preparation probably wasn't there. And like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I did hear like some people quit like during
on
their
the
shift.
spot,
Like
yeah.
on the spot, like
Really?
security like was like, I don't want to risk my life. Like
Yeah.
being here based off of like the past with Travis Scott, it's, like,
Yeah.
it makes sense because he literally told like all of his fans, like security, like let him through, like let all my fans
Wasn't
through.
the like the recommended occupancy for like 50,000, something like that, or
70,000, but
70,000?
he had sold 100,000 tickets.
Really?
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, isn't there like, wasn't it like 500,000 or some crazy
Yeah,
number?
no,
Like the amount of people.
50,000.
That actually showed up.
I thought it was some
Jesus.
crazy number, like way too high that showed up.
Probably
but
like not recorded
yeah,
because of
Yeah.
so many
It's
people
probably
just
hard
coming
to
in.
record that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely think he deserves all the punishment
Me
for
too.
that. Like,
No,
I just
yeah,
don't
I've
think
been a
there's an
Travis
excuse
fan
for it.
and-
Yeah,
It's just like it doesn't matter at this point. Just because you like someone doesn't mean they can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so
That's with any artist, really. It's
yeah.
like,
I mean, it's kind of like, I know it's kind of two separate issues, but I mean, it's somewhat similar to what happened like to DaBaby when he made those comments at, what was it was Lollapalooza?
Yeah,
was it?
Yeah, because he was
and then he
supposed to
doubled
perform.
down, and then it's like, dude, what are you doing? And then his career has kind of gone down from that, so I feel like a similar situation is going to happen.
Do you guys think Travis will go downhill, or do you think, I mean, because to me, I'm like, I feel like he is a little too big. Almost, maybe, but I don't know.
He has
I've been
pretty
thinking
big
about
following.
it.
I think the bigger issue is just like rage culture as a whole, which isn't all him.
Yeah.
It's just like that's just the music that the culture has picked. You know, like it started in like the late '80s in like the early '90s with punk and things like that, and it's just kind of conveniently been the music that he's making is what people are identifying with to do like moshing and raging like that. So only so much of it's his fault. You know, like he's trying to make music that he likes. I mean, he has some really good works. Like Rodeo is a very good album.
Yeah,
Exactly.
But yeah, it's really how much of it's him and how much of it is the culture that's followed him. You know.
yeah,
So.
definitely.
Well, that has been us discussing the recent tragedy in Houston with the Travis Scott concert. Our next segment will be a vinyl review on Working Man's Dead. We'll catch you after the break.
No one takes drugs expecting to become addicted. You should know that addiction can happen to anyone because it's a disease of the brain. That also means recovery is possible. Addiction doesn't have to be permanent, and the state of Kansas is ready to assist you in every step of the way. Visit findtreatment.gov or call the Kansas Substance Abuse Referral Line at 866-645-8216.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
And welcome back to Vinyl Review. This is Deadhead Incorporated. I'm Nathaniel Duncan. This is
Hayden Spratlin.
And this is
Heath Spratlin.
That's my dad.
Oh man, this is the first father-son duo that we've ever had on the show. Is it an honor to be here? With
It
your
is.
son
It's
today?
a real big honor, and it's also an honor to talk about one of the best Grateful Dead albums.
I would certainly agree. This is Working Man's Dead, which came out in 1970. It recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. And me and Hayden were talking about this album as, well, more or less the music of the Grateful Dead. And you prefer a lot of their live stuff, as I'm sure both me and Hayden do. We prefer the live stuff over the album, but do you think that this album is one of their best studio outputs?
I do like it a lot because with this one, it's more of the country Grateful Dead sound. Out of all the songs on there, Easy Wind is the only song that they quit playing in the 70s, and that only happened because their Pigpen, McKernan, their keyboard player passed away. So they put the song back in the archives. But all these songs are songs that are staples and that have been played hundreds of times over the years. And they've just gotten better because what they've done is they expanded on them, you know, during the 70s and later in the 80s through the psychedelic era. I mean, you know, you've got Casey Jones on here, Uncle John's Band. Those two songs are, if you turn on the radio, those are probably the songs you're going to hear, if not Touch of Grey, you know. And that came back in the 85. But this is just an amazing album. It's got High Time on it. It's got a song on it called New Speedway Boogie, which kind of goes back to a little bit before the section the girls were talking about the section before here with Hayden, is that this all happened at Altamont in the late 60s, where the Stones hired the Hells Angels to be their bodyguards, and they ended up killing somebody.
Yeah.
And so this is the Grateful Dead's reprise of Robert Hunter writing about that day, and there's a quote on it when Jerry Garcia gets off the helicopter at Altamont. He looks out and he goes, "It's a nice day in hell, isn't it?" Yeah. Because the background was all red from all the stuff that had happened, yeah.
Hayden, this is kind of a different album that the Dead did this time. This is more or less of like the country bluegrass.
Well, they came out of San Francisco with it, didn't they?
Well, they did, but I mean, if you look at their first album to then, that sound is completely different as it is now. They kind of refined more of that kind of soft rock, easy listening sound.
Well, it's during that protest era too, you know, when Neil, Crosby, and Stills were big, making protest music about Vietnam. You know, it's all going there, trying to get that Willie Hay sound. You know, it's really kind of neat though how different just some of the experimenting they did, because it's something that I feel like has kind of been lost in somewhat recent times, where artists kind of find one sound that they like and they stick with that because they know it'll work. But they were just like, screw it, we're going to do something completely different, try something else, and I think it's just kind of
a lot of that though. What you're talking about was the influence of Pigpen. Yeah. He was a big blues guy, and like he and Janis Joplin were best buddies, so that had a lot to do with that influence then, and geez, I mean. This actually came after the electric Kool-Aid acid test. So, they kind of changed their sound. They went back to a more like folky, like bluegrass sound, which was what Jerry was really into.
Right.
He's loved to play the banjo, and he was actually Bob Weir's guitar and banjo teacher. So that's how Bob got involved in the band.
And that's one thing I really like about the Grateful Dead, is that these 6 musicians just came together. All their influences are completely different from each other. And it's just like the perfect coming together of 6 musicians, and it worked so brilliantly.
Right, and Phil Lesh, I mean, he's classically trained, and then you get a guy like Jerry Garcia who can play the banjo with any of the best bluegrass players out there. Yeah, they meshed really well. And they even actually, I think, got better after Pigpen left the band, unfortunately, when he passed away.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest losses for them, especially back then. It was such an instrumental part in their sound that they created, especially in those really early psychedelic days.
Yes.
Great keyboard player.
Great keyboard player, and his vocals were really good, and he brought that cowboy sound in, more or less,
And you can really feel this on the sound, because this, as we said, some more country, more or less album, the bluegrass, which is something I really like. Now, the song that everybody knows, you brought up, Casey Jones, that is one of my favorite songs ever. That might be that sounds a little casual, but that is that's probably my favorite, like, studio Grateful Dead song.
Okay.
If we're talking live, I mean, some of the stuff they did with Good Love, and especially at the Bickershaw Festival, that's 20 minutes long. That is one of my favorite Grateful Dead shows, and one of my favorite Grateful Dead live songs.
We're talking about Casey Jones here. So that's the song that you hear on the radio. But it became such a song for the Grateful Dead, they very rarely played it live anymore. Very rarely. I think I saw that song 3 times, and I saw 120-something shows.
Yeah, I think they probably strayed away from the hits because they didn't want people to.
But no,
that's what they're known for.
They played Sugar Magnolia all the time, Uncle John's Band. But that song, I think it just got to be too much of a top 40 hit for them.
Yeah.
That they just strayed away from that, didn't want to be in the mainstream with it.
Whenever you're listening to Casey Jones, if you listen closely, like right at the beginning, within the first second or two, you can kind of hear a quick little sniff.
I wonder what he was high on.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Well, I think they say in the song.
Oh, they do. Yeah. They do. You guys can figure out what he was on.
Yeah, give Casey Jones a listen after this.
Yeah, that's what I was always wondering what this. I didn't know if that was just like a little scuffle that I always hear.
I'm 90% sure, man, because I whenever I was listening to this again in preparation for the show, I thought I heard something. I'm like, hold on, let me play that back really quick. I'm like, that cannot be on accident.
No, it's not, because I went and talked to some other people that I know real well that are bigger Deadheads than I said.
Yeah, he knows a couple guys probably.
Yeah.
He knows a couple of them.
And that's on there.
Well, Casey Jones, most people don't know, is actually a real person too. Is a railroad engineer. Was not did not partake in any of that. He was actually, when he died, I believe he was trying to prevent a great disaster that ended up, I think he died in about 1901 or so, I believe. But yeah, it's kind of mythologized who he is. That I think it's become a kind of a pop culture reference.
Right, it really has. But with a lot of songs, though, it's made a lot of people pop cultures. I mean, good gosh. There's a lot of people that come out of the Dead, even just like sayings and things that have come out of there, just little quotes, like
Touch of Grey.
Yeah, Touch of Grey, or like just like the recycle.
The gray heads. Yeah, we don't associate with them.
or like Saint Stephen, they assume that song now with recycling, which I think is kind of cool.
Well, we're gonna start to wrap things up, but I want to hear your guys' favorite, not as big track. Hayden, we'll start with you. What is your favorite, not as well-known track on this album?
I mean, I like Casey. I know it's well known, but I like Casey Jones. It was like, it was one of the
Black Peter.
No, I'm sorry, man. It was the track that I never knew it was by the Grateful Dead, And then I figured it out, and I was like, what? No way. And I mean, I'd grown up, this guy had always been playing the band, and I had just never heard it really. And then I heard it by myself, and I was like, what? You're telling me they made this? And then it kind of got me a little more interested, and then it's kind of what got me to actually get more into the Grateful Dead. So I kind of have to like it just for sentimental value. What
about you? Favorite hidden gem?
High Time or New Speedway Boogie. I like High Time a lot. It's a really good Jerry tune. He's got some really good parts in there where he goes off and he has a couple good solos and everything, but I think it's one of Robert Hunter's songs better lyrically. Like if you listen to it, there's a lot of meaning to it, and he put a lot into it, you know.
I think the song was mostly, I guess, exemplifies that Americana sound from the Dead. I would totally say that, like we said again, moving kind of away from that psychedelic sound of the early, or not early, but the late 60s, and moving toward a softer, more country sound that they would later imply. But I mean, they still did psychedelic stuff even later after this.
Yeah.
Well, they had American Beauty that year as well, right?
Well, yes, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
But
which is another great one.
To me, though, it's like they did Americana music in phases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like some of the things you can see, there's a huge jazz influence. You know, huge blues influence, huge bluegrass influence, country infused on this album, you know, so I think it's basically Americana music just lumped into one.
And that will be about it for this vinyl review this week. I'd like to thank Heath for coming in. This was awesome to talk about one of my favorite bands. I've actually, in the 4 semesters I've run the show, I've never gotten a chance to talk about the Grateful Dead, which is a big surprise because I pretty much wear apparel from them almost every week on my show. But next week, me and Nathan will be back. We'll be talking about Jabriath's debut album from 1973. But for now, I'm Nathaniel.
I'm Hayden.
And I'm Heath.
We'll see ya at This Week in History next.
No one takes drugs expecting to become addicted. You should know that addiction can happen to anyone because it's a disease of the brain. That also means recovery is possible. Addiction doesn't have to be permanent, and the state of Kansas is ready to assist you in every step of the way. Visit findtreatment.gov or call the Kansas Substance Abuse Referral Line at 866-645-8216.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
Welcome back to This Week in History. I'm Hayden.
And I'm Ryan.
In 1957, Elvis Presley, appeared at the Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. This was Presley's last concert of the 50s before he served in the United States Army between 1958 and 1960. At the time of his draft, he was one of the most known names in the entertainment industry.
In 1961, Jimmy Dean started a 5-week run at #1 on the U.S. charts with Big Bad John. Jimmy went on to present his own primetime show on U.S. TV.
In 1979, the Eagles went #1 on the U.S. singles chart with Heartache Tonight. This was the group's 5th and final U.S. number.
In 1982, Prince kicked off his 87th stop tour called 1999. This North American tour was started in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
In 1983, Billy Joel held the #1 spot with his hit Uptown Girl, which stayed on top of the charts for 5 weeks. This song was written about a relationship with ex-girlfriend Ella McPherson, but ended about his soon-to-be wife, Christy Brinkley.
The Foo Fighters are switching it up from their normal musical talents and hitting the big screen. They announced yesterday that they are releasing a comedy horror named Studio 666 next February.
And that's all for This Week in History. Be sure to tune in next week at 4 and follow us on our socials on Twitter at Jayhawk_Jukebox and our Instagram at JayhawkJukebox.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.